Hi, GD class. I hope everyone is doing well and you're enjoying the spring and coming to the last part of our class here with our language arts and social studies. As you know, this year the state of Illinois has waived the Constitution exam. So that fifth component does not need to be completed this year, which is great news. So, after the math and the science, our focus point now is moving towards the reading component, the writing component, and then some of the background with the social studies, obviously, um, some of the knowledge with history and economics, society, geography. But today, the focus on the language arts is going to be the reading component. We're going to take a look into the passages, dive deeper into the analysis, take a look at what we need to see, how to do it. The language arts contains of pretty much three components. So, component number one is the reading. So it's a long reading process where we have passages and then we're answering the passages. Second component is grammar. So it's a lot of fixing the sentence, replacing the sentence with something else, modifying, rearranging the order of the sentences to in order for something to make better sense. So we're going to take a deeper look at that, next week. And the actual essay portion, we have to prepare ourselves to write an essay on a topic that we will not know. They will not tell us what topic it's going to be, but we have to prepare ourselves to see a topic, to see two, three writers writing about this topic, and we have to make a decision as far as who do we support, why do we support them, and why don't we support the others that we are reading about. So a lot of fun stuff, and I'm excited to share those things with you guys. So let's take a look here at the um, language arts and the reasoning behind it. And so I'm going to dive directly into our GED database in here and show you how these questions are going to be. Some strategies here that are very important are going to be things such as they're stating here, um, not spending too much time on the question. If you are not certain on the answer, you want to make an educated guess. You do not want to sit there too long and go back and forth with certain questions. You can flag them just like we did with our other components with the science and the math, like we said, and then come back to it later. But we truly want to take a nice um, action in each question. And like they said, next, if you're not certain on the answer to a question, yes, you can flag it, but it would be better, in my opinion, here, unlike the science and the math, where we wanted to go after the easy questions first and then come back for the hard ones before we ran out of time. With the language arts, it's important that we treat every question the same. It's a reading question. Let's find it on the passage and answer it. If we don't answer at that time, when we come back, we would have to most likely read the passage again, and that'll take more time. So once the passage is read, it's fresh in your mind, in your view, then we should be able to answer all the questions related to that passage. Um, it also says here that some questions are based on materials presented on the left side. So you'll have the split screen reading questions on the right, reading on the left. We want to make sure that we cover all the reading that's on the left. It'll be in different pages, so I can show you. I'll navigate with you here, but it's not always everything there. So you kind of have to go through the pages as if this was paper pencil type, and you would have to go through the pages, which would have made it harder. Now, at least they're all in front of you in the screen, and you can navigate through the screen. So let's take a look at some of the questions in here as we're working with this. And again, we still have our flag for review option, and we still have our explanation right here with the rationale, which is very important. Rationale means the reasoning behind it, why. So you always want to know the why. Always, that helps you pretty much get better at your components and what you're doing. So there's a story right here. I'll read it for you guys, and then we'll go through the questions. It says lessons on the savannah. Now, one thing that's very important, the title of the reading, that is 99% the main idea, right? So the title says a lot. Sometimes you're looking for the main idea and it's located right there. If it's not in the title, most likely it's located in the first sentence of the reading and the first paragraph in the beginning. Always look in the beginning, right? So these are lessons on the savannah. So let's see. It says, I'm not so worried about time anymore, I said. He smiled. Good. You're making progress. Come with me. He led me to a tree not far from the camp. You must climb as high as you can and find a comfortable branch where you can look out over the savannah. And see, you can see now, right? Where that's what we're going to be talking about, the savannah. He handed me the water gourd. You will need this. I took the gourd. What about you? I will be too busy to drink, he said. I don't know what he meant by this, but I climbed the bone dry tree anyway and found a large branch near the top that was comfortable. Can you see the grass of the savannah? So Pete yelled up to me. Yes, I shouted back. Good. What else do you see? Now I'm going to click up here on page 2. Here we go again, I thought. I looked carefully. Shimmering waves of heat created mirages in the distance. I saw 3 copias within a half mile of each other. And you can see now, like when you read that, what's a copia? Underneath here, it says copia is an African word for a small rocky hill. You can also say kopje. So 3 kopjes within a half mile of each other. Trees dotted the landscape, and there were several small groups of animals grazing on the dry grass of the savannah. About 150 yards away, a herd of zebras took advantage of the shade of an acacia tree. A few hundred feet past the herd were a few more trees, and underneath them were 2 rhinoceros sleeping. I told Supede what I saw. Watch me, he said, and remember, this will take some time. If you lose track of where I am, look to the zebras and work your way back to where you last saw me. I will, I said. I was confused about what was going on. So Pete walked briskly out in the savannah, then stopped. He slipped off his sandals and shuka. Now you're like, what's shuka? Shuka, a Ma word for a decorative length of cloth worn in parts of Africa. So those are the citations in the bottom, letting you know what those words mean. They're important. Then reached down for something I couldn't quite see and rubbed it all over his body. When he was finished, he lay down and rolled on the ground, then got back to his feet. From head to toes, he was covered with red dust and blended in perfectly with his surroundings. Let's go to page 3. For several minutes, he stood perfectly still, looking at the zebras beneath the acacia tree. Then he began to move very slowly in their direction. His movement reminded me of the mimes I had seen in Central Park. Each step was exaggerated and painfully slow. Sometimes he froze mid-step, holding his leg up for several minutes. Before putting his foot gently on the ground, the closer he got to the zebras, the slower he went. Twice I looked my eyes off him and had trouble finding him again. When he was 25 feet away from the zebras, they still gave no signs that they knew he was there. It was incredible. They swished their tails at the flies and looked out over the savannah as if nothing were happening. I waited for Supede to rush in on them, but instead he moved even more slowly. In fact, the only way I could tell he was moving was by looking at the spot he had previously occupied. He literally inched his way towards them. I wonder how long it had taken him to perfect his technique. If Supit could make himself essentially invisible, he could do just about anything, including make it rain. Let's go to page 4. Finally, he was close enough to one zebra to touch it, which he did, slapping it on the butt. The zebras jumped around in confusion, then in panic bolted across the savannah. So Pete stood under the acacia tree, laughing at the joke he had played on them. I climbed down and jogged over to him. When I got up to him, I told him that it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. It's actually a game, he said. When we were boys, we practiced with rhinoceros when they were asleep. The first boy places a rock on the rhinoceros' back without waking it. The next boy takes the first boy's rock and places his own rock on the back, and so on, until someone makes a mistake and wakes the rhinoceros. And my parents used to worry about some time of those things my friends and I did in New York. It's great fun, so Pete said, until the animal wakes up, that is. He laughed. Rhinoceros are easy. Rhinoceros have few enemies and are not as alert as animals that are preyed upon. The tribe taught me to stalk many other animals. You must be exhausted, I said. I could use a drink of water. I handed him the gourd and he took a big drink. Would you like to learn? Yes. All right, he said. But by the time we finish, it will be too late to travel. I don't care. Good. We will stalk the rhinoceros by those trees. Try not to wake them, though. Good safety tip, I thought. So, some advice here, right? We had 5 pages. Did you see how I read? Very slow, very careful. Get the material, get the main idea, get the details, because I would not want to go back to the reading. I only have so much time to do all the reading and all the questions based on the reading. And like I said, language arts contains of 3 parts. I have to go through all these reading passages, all the grammar passages, and an essay. So it's the longest test out of all of them. Therefore, my mentality will be in and out, right? I want to go in once and I want to get out once and have this test done. It has a high success rate. I don't want to have to go back and retake the language arts, right? I don't have much to prepare for it outside of patience, test taking skills, and a little bit of strategy. So let's take a look at the questions now. Question number 1 says, which quotation from the passage supports the idea that Supit is teaching the narrator um, a skill that requires patience? And, here, as we've said before, you always have to take a look at, the questions, the exact question. What exactly are we looking here? A skill, right? So he is teaching the narrator a skill that requires patience. So what can we do? Like we said last time in our previous video, we're going to use a lot of elimination. A says, I will be too busy to drink. That's not a skill, teaching the other one. Each step was exaggerated and painfully slow. That's an explanation. When we were boys, we practiced with rhinoceros when they were asleep. That's just a story, right? So how about D in here? The tribe taught me to stalk many other animals. That's another one where it's being actually, taught to Supit. So the question here says, which quotation from the passage supports the idea that Supit is teaching the narrator, right? So, in my opinion, here, and which is also the correct answer, is that each step was exaggerated and painfully slow. The steps that pretty much they were proceeding here as they were stalking the animal, they were going slowly behind the animal, and that is a teaching. The other 3 are things that Supit, the teacher here, actually is talking about, but the steps are teaching steps to his student. If you ever doubt your answer or you want to check, as we said, you always want to go to the answer explanations in here. You click on it and you take a look at the obviously your rationale, right? Option B is correct. And they say, if you correctly selected this response, you likely recognize the word exaggerated and the phrase painfully slow point to how the activity is drawn out, right? They're chasing these animals. They're, paying attention to their steps. They're in Africa, all these different things here, right? And all of that work for one question. So that's why we have to be very careful. But now that we read this passage carefully, we are actually ready to go into the other questions without going back and rereading. So question number 2 says, which fact can the reader infer about the narrator? Now, the word infer means you make an assumption. You assume that because of what he's showing you, because what he's doing for you, maybe then he is this or that, right? You make an assumption. So that's inference. It's very important in language arts, making inferences, right? Not having the facts, but inferring based on what you see, you hear, you observe, you notice, and then you infer. So let's go by elimination again. He's experiencing working with animals. Okay, that's pretty good. He's in a hurry to reach his next destination. Maybe, but he's taking too long. He was nervous about traveling in the savannah, and he was raised in the city rather than in the wilderness, right? Okay, so who are we talking about? Are we talking about the teacher, Supit? Yes, the teacher's experience in working with animals. Or are we talking about the person who's telling the story, right? So we want to know about the narrator, you who traveled in Africa and was inexperienced and was taught by this experienced guru, right? So for question number 2, the right answer would be D, that the person, the narrator who is writing about the story, traveled in Africa and he was raised in the city. They mentioned New York. That's why we read it very slow. And in New York, they did not do those things. Obviously, same thing with you guys being out here in Chicago, unless you go into a different area. But he was raised in the city rather than in the wilderness. So that is, the best fact in here. So, okay, let's go and move on to the next question. Question number 3 here. Same passage. So that's why I said it helps that you take a lot of time reading the passage. So now next question says, which definition, a meaning, right, best matches the use of the word occupied in paragraph 16. So what do? We're going to go to paragraph 16 and we are going to find the word. That's the beauty of having the split screen. And let's see on paragraph 16 in here, there is the word occupied. And we're going to start reading around it just to understand like what's going on, right? So here it says, in fact, the only way I could tell he was moving was by looking at the spot he had previously occupied, meaning he was here one moment and you couldn't tell he was moving unless you focused here. So then he moved a little bit, like an inch or two. By looking at where he was before, he moved an inch or two. Now you know that he truly moved, right? So that's the key here. Occupied, space, where are you, right? Time. So we're going to use elimination again. Here for A, it says to have held a position or office, okay? To have taken or filled up space and time. To have been a resident or tenant. These, I don't like them as much. To have taken possession of control. We are mostly talking about he's somewhere, right? He's at a spot. So I don't like the word office because he's not working. So B would be a better answer, very close to A. A is a really good answer as well. but he's filling up a spot in space and time. And then a second later or 2 seconds later, that spot is not there. He's somewhere else. But if you take a look at it, then you'll know he was at some point here, and then a second later or 2 seconds later, or even a minute later, he moved just a little bit left, right, up and down from that position, right? Space and time is what we're looking for in this particular case. So a little tricky. We also had to go into the reading. We have 5 pages here, but the beautiful part about this is that everything is numbered, and we know those numbers to go back based on the question saying us, and they're recommending us to go back. So we know where we have to go to answer that. Okay, now we're going to go into a different passage. So we're going to take a read of this, and then we are going to do some questions on this so we can better understand it. So okay, so let's take a look at this passage here. We have an excerpt that says from Annie of Green Gables. Marilla came briskly forward as Matthew opened the door. But when her eyes fell on the odd little figure in the stiff, ugly dress with the long braids of red hair and the eager, luminous eyes, she stopped short in amazement. Matthew Gothbert, who's that? She exclaimed. Where's the boy? There wasn't any boy, said Matthew wretchedly. There was only her. Page 2. He nodded at the child, remembering that he had never even asked her name. No boy? But there must have been a boy, insisted Marilla. We sent word to Miss Spencer to bring a boy. Well, she didn't. She brought her. I asked the station master, and I had to bring her home. She couldn't be left there, no matter where the mistake had come in. Well, this is a pretty piece of business, exclaimed Marilla. During this dialogue, the child remained silent, her eyes roving from one to the other, all the animation fading out of her face. Suddenly, she seemed to grasp the full meaning of what had been said. Dropping her precious carpet bag, she sprang forward a step and clasped her hands. You don't want me, she cried. I might have expected it. Nobody ever did want me. I might have known it was all too beautiful to last. I might have known nobody really did want me. Oh, what shall I do? I'm going to burst into tears. Page 3. Burst into tears she did, sitting down on a chair by the table, flinging her arms out upon it and burying her face in them. She proceeded to cry stormily. Marilla and Matthew looked at each other helplessly across the stove. Neither of them knew what to say or do. Finally, Marilla stepped lamely into the breach. Well, there's no need to cry so about it. Yes, there is need. The child raised her head quickly, revealing a tear-stained face and trembling lips. You would cry too if you were an orphan and had come to a place who thought was going to be home and found that they did not want you. This is the most tragical thing that ever happened to me. Something like a reluctant smile, rather rusty from long disuse, mellowed Marilla's grim expression. Well, don't cry anymore. We're not going to turn you out of doors tonight. You'll have to stay here until we investigate this affair. What's your name? The child hesitated for a moment. Will you please call me Cordelia? She said eagerly. Call you Cordelia? Is that your name? Page 4. No, it's not exactly my name, but I would love to be called Cordelia. It's such a perfectly elegant name. I don't know what on earth you mean. If Cordelia isn't your name, what is it? Annie Shirley reluctantly faltered forth the owner of that name. But oh, please do call me Cordelia. It can't matter much to you what you call me if I'm only going to be here a little while, can it? And Annie is such an unromantic name. Unromantic fiddlesticks. said the unsympathetic Marilla. Annie is a really good, plain, sensible name. You've no need to be ashamed of it. Oh, I'm not ashamed of it, explained Annie. Only I like Cordelia better. I've always imagined that my name was Cordelia. At least I always have of late years. When I was young, I used to imagine it was Geraldine, but I like Cordelia better now. But if you call me Annie, please call me Annie spelled with an E. What difference does it make how it's spelled? Asked Marilla with another rusty smile as she picked up the teapot. Oh, it makes such a difference. It looks so much nicer. So after this great story, and some of those stories are awesome as you guys are reading them. It gives a lot of sense of society. And that's why you want to read them slow again, right? Second story, we took our time, we went through every page. And then now we're ready to take a look at the question here for this session. So it says, in this excerpt, Annie asked Marilla to call her Cordelia. What does this request reveal about Annie? What does this reveal? Meaning, what does this show? What's wrong? Why would you want to be called somebody else? There's some psychosocial phenomena happening here, right? There's some analysis, there's some mental analysis. So we're going to use our elimination technique. We're going to read every option, and we're going to take a look at which option works the best. So A says she tries to make her life more interesting, possibly. She wishes she could fit in better with her peers. That's a good answer as well. She feels confused about her own past. Maybe, maybe not. She hesitates to share personal details. Not sure because she did. She shared her name and she just said that, I need things to be a little more interesting. I like things better. So, in my opinion here, I would go with A. She would like to make things more interesting in her life. Um, and maybe become more lovable and more attractive to parents that are adopting. She's getting a little older now. You can say, how do you know that, Itri? Because if I go to page one had a picture, and this picture looks of an older child, not a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, which would have made it harder for these parents to send back, no matter if it was a boy or a girl. It seems that they want to adopt a boy, a little older, and so her being a girl, and maybe she wants to make her life a little more interesting in this occasion. So can we check the answer just to be safe? There you go. Part A. Let's see what they're saying here on the rationale. Option A is correct. If you correctly selected this option, you likely read closely enough to understand that Annie asked to be called Cordelia because it is such a perfectly elegant name, as she says. And she believes Annie is such an unromantic name. So again, looking for attention, looking for her to look a little more interesting, so then she can be more lovable, and there's more interest on her. So a little bit of a difficult question, but again, we have to read very slowly to understand that. Next question here. It's actually a very interesting one because it is a hotspot question where they give you options, then you have to take them and drag them into the locations. So for example, it says here, drag and drop the events into the chart to show the order in which they occurred in the excerpt. Meaning, once we read the event, we need to know what happened first, second, third, and fourth. Interesting because on those hotspot questions, if we don't have the order exactly the way they want it, we do not have any credit given to us in the exam. So it's either perfectly set up or we get 0 points from this. It counts the same as every other question. So let's see, order of events. What happened first? Marilla tells Annie not to cry. That happened a little later. Matthew explains Annie's presence. Yes. So see, look, you catch this, you grab it on the computer, and then you move it up. So Matthew explains Annie's presence. Why is she there? Then Marilla, all of a sudden, pretty much starts, being interested into this. So we have Marilla tells Annie not to cry. Marilla decides Annie can stay for the night. Well, um, that would be maybe a little later. So once like the explanation is occurring, Annie becomes very upset. She says that that's like her, the worst day of her life. And Marilla tells her not to cry. After that, Marilla decides to keep her there. They're not going to send her back in the night. And then our conclusive paragraph is when they actually are getting a little closer. You never know. She is staying the night, so we don't know if they send her back. So that's when Annie starts making a case for herself as Cordelia, maybe hoping that the family just maybe might keep her. So Matthew explains Annie's presence. Marilla tells Annie not to cry because she gets upset. Then they decide to keep her there, and then once they decide to keep her, then everything calms down. The scene changes into them starting to get to know her a little bit. And maybe the next day, who knows? But that's the beauty of the reading, right? Trying to understand what is the scenario and what would be the best thing for us to do. So I hope you guys, enjoyed this from today, and I gave you a little bit of an understanding of how to read, where to look at the pointers. As you guys know, I'm very visual, so I try to really see the scenario, read through the scenario, not rush through the test. I do want to make sure that every question counts, and start doing this strategy. And as we continue with the language arts, we're going to have a chance to go over our grammar. We want to see like how difficult the grammar is. And then after that, we also want to talk about perfect strategies for our essay, how to get ready for our essay. So until next time, thank you again for watching this and preparing yourself. And I'm happy to see you guys getting involved with this class and doing your best. So I'll see you later. Bye.